Communication from the Chair. Order number 2, motion, joint report of the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs of the National Assembly and the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations of the Senate on the approval for appointment of Mr. Douglas Kanja Kirocho as Inspector General of the National Police Service.
Chairperson, Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the interest of time, I will be brief in moving this motion. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security and Senate Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on the approval on the report on the approval hearing of Mr. Douglas Kanja Kirocho, nominee for appointment to the position of Inspector General of the National Police Service, pursuant to Standing Order 2236 of the Senate Standing Orders. Mr. Speaker, sir, as you are aware, pursuant to a provision of Article 245(2)(a) of the Constitution, Section 12, Subsection 2 of the National Police Service Act, Cap 84, and Section 5 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approvals Act, Cap 7F, His Excellency the President submitted the name of Douglas Kanja Kirocho, CBS, OGW, as the nominee for appointment for the position of Inspector General of the National Police Service. Mr. Speaker, what follows thereafter is procedural issues. I will be able to mention, Mr. Speaker, that the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Speaker of Senate, via communication made on 1st of August 2024, conveyed the message from the President nominating Douglas Kanja Kirocho as the nominee for appointment to the position of Inspector General of the National Police Service. Consequently, Mr. Speaker, the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Speaker of Senate revert the matter to the two committees to hold a joint approval hearing. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Section 6, Subsection 9 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approvals Act, the Clerk of the National Assembly and the Clerk of the Senate invited interested members of the public to submit any representations by written statements on oath, that is affidavits, with supporting defense evidence on the suitability of the nominee for appointment to the position of Inspector General. The invitations, Mr. Speaker, were made via advertisements which appeared in the National Daily Nation and the Standard newspapers on Saturday, 3rd of August 2024. Mr. Speaker, the notification was followed up by a letter to the nominee inviting him to attend the approval hearing and requesting him to submit the completed questionnaire set out in schedule to the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approvals Act, that is CAP 7F, together with the clearance certificates from the Office of the ODPP, ESEC, KRA, DCI, HELP, and CRB as required under the law. Mr. Speaker, further, the clerks also of the two houses wrote to ODPP, the same institutions, seeking reference and background checks relating to the suitability of the nominee. Mr. Speaker, these are all legal requirements that are mandatory. It is legal. It should be received as we vet the nominee. And Mr. Speaker, again, further clerks also of the two houses went forward now to receive these responses. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Article 118 of the Constitution, Section 6.3 of the Public Appointments, Standing Order 45.3 of the National Assembly, and Standing Order 77.2 of the Senate, Standing Orders. The clerks of the two houses, by way of advertisement, also Mr. Speaker, in the print media, notified the general public of the intention of the committee to conduct public approvals. Mr. Speaker, it is important for the public to know, and even for this House, that public participation is no longer an optional, it is mandatory also. And that is why the Constitution of the Republic and Article 118 comes to play here, so that we also get to know from the public what they think of a nominee, whether CS, whether PS, and even for the case of the IG. Mr. Speaker, the committee conducted approval hearings on 15th of August, that is Thursday. In conducting the approvals hearing, the committee were guided by the provisions of the Constitution, the Public Appointments, Parliamentary Approvals Act, the National Public Service, the National Police Public Service, the National Assembly Standing Orders, and the Senate Standing Orders. So, Mr. Speaker, those are the legal provisions that guided the committee, the joint committee, during the approval hearings. Mr. Speaker, in the interest of time, because, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the report of this joint committee, it is well detailed. Every aspect of what transpired during the approval hearings, Mr. Speaker, are captured very well in this particular report, which is detailed. That is, Mr. Speaker, Chapter 3 of the report, from paragraph 36 all the way. If you want to know what transpired, the responses by the nominee is mindset on the issues that are pertinent in his leadership, if approved, are captured in Chapter 3 of the report. So, in the interest of time, I would like just to request my colleagues, as you go through this, refer to Chapter 3, and you will see all what transpired. And I think I will stop at that. So I will, Mr. Speaker, go to committee's observations based on the approval hearings. Mr. Speaker, the committee observed that a total of 30 memorandums were received with regard to the suitability of the nominee. Mr. Speaker, memorandums from the public must fulfill certain requirements. It should be supported by an affidavit and the evidence. And that is something that is mandatory also. So out of the 30, two only fulfill the requirements of the law. It had an affidavit in support and the evidence, Mr. Speaker. The issues raised in the two memorandums, Mr. Speaker, contesting the suitability of the nominee was sufficiently and satisfactorily addressed by the nominee and do not provide sufficient evidence to warrant the disqualification of the nominee for appointment to the position of IG. Again, Mr. Speaker, the full details of those issues raised by the two Kenyans are also contained. The complaints and the response by the nominee, and also the analysis by the committee as to whether those two complaints really can stop the the vetting of the nominee. Mr. Speaker, the other observation the committee also made is that the nominee fulfilled the provisions of Article 78, Sub-Article 1 and 2 of the Constitution for appointment. Important to note that the Kenya, the National Police Service Act has most of the provisions as to the requirements, the qualifications of the nominee, and we were satisfied as a committee that, Mr. Speaker, under observation number 10D, he had that particular provision of a degree. The nominee meets the requirements of Chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership and integrity, having obtained the clearance from the institutions I spoke about. That is EACC, you talk about KRA, and all the other institutions, Mr. Speaker. The committee was satisfied that indeed the nominee fulfills requirements of Chapter 6 on leadership and integrity. Mr. Speaker, of topical, administrative, technical issues relating to governance and the requisite abilities, qualifications, experience to serve. Mr. Speaker, I participated in vetting the immediate former IG. And as we all do this, Mr. Speaker, this nominee promises heaven for the Kenyan people. Available, they will be available. They will be hands-on. They will be able to visit the ground. They will be able to respond. And Mr. Speaker, we took time as a committee to inquire from the nominee if indeed he will be one of those people who will just come and make some public pronouncements, which later, immediately appointed, they forget about. Mr. Speaker, this is the nominee rose from the ranks of a corporal, and he has served this country as a police officer, Mr. Speaker, for 39 years, rising through the ranks. Mr. Speaker, he has served in almost every part of the country, in various positions. Mr. Speaker, he assured the committee and the public that Mr. Speaker is going to ensure that he will fulfill the promises he gave to the committee. Mr. Speaker, there are about two issues I will just mention so that I stop. Mr. Speaker, the issue of North Rift, 7 counties, hosting 9 million Kenyans, suffering from cattle rustling. Mr. Speaker, I have moved a motion in this House, approved. It's now being implemented by the department concerned. And Mr. Speaker, the nominee was able to promise deployment, if approved by this House, deployment of enough NPR, the deployment of more security forces. He was able to address the issue of the extrajudicial killings, which Kenyans still feel it exists. But he affirmed to the committee, Mr. Speaker, that is something which is going to work on it. Mr. Speaker, issues concerning the robberies going on in our cities and so on. Matters, Mr. Speaker, regarding the welfare of the members, housing, insurance, and so on. So, Mr. Speaker, if because of time, I will refer members to the report because it has all those issues. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that based on the observations made, the committee recommends that the House approves that Mr. Douglas Kanja Kirocho, CBS, OGW, for appointment as the Inspector General of Police Service. Mr. Speaker, I want to end there and request my brother Mungatana to also briefly second this motion so that members will have a moment to debate before we go to the other matter before the House. So I want to request Mungatana to second. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move.
Senator Mungatana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank the Honorable William Cheptumo, our Chairman for Internal Security Committee and Foreign Affairs, and Gabriel Tongoyo, his counterpart in the National Assembly, for the good work they have done in preparing this report. Mr. Speaker, in seconding the appointment of Mr. Douglas Kanja, I wanted to particularly take this floor to commend Mr. Kanja. I know a lot is going to be said in this House, Mr. Speaker, about his very good qualifications, his many years in service, and his excellent performance up to now. But what I want to really emphasize, Mr. Speaker, is what Mr. Kanja has been doing of late, which I want him to start, not to stop from where he started. Mr. Speaker, we are not saying anything bad about the previous Inspector General of Police. But even in his acting capacity, Douglas Kanja has been communicating to the Kenyan people, especially when we were having challenges in the city and other places with high populations around the country. Mr. Speaker, he would come out and tell us, this is the plan the police have. This is what we expect those who want, for example, to express their opinions, where they need to go, what they need to do. This is the way we are going to handle this matter. Mr. Speaker, this is the expectation of the public. And this is the expectation we want the new Inspector General to carry out. We want proper communication. Mr. Speaker, I have sat in this House and spoken about the responsibility of public officers and their responsibility to speak to Kenyans. When we were approving here Dr. Patrick Amoth, I stood here in this House, Mr. Speaker, and I said, we are having issues that need proper communication. We do not want to be told by bloggers what is happening on MPOX. We want the officials of government to speak with authority on these matters. And Mr. Speaker, I was so gratified yesterday when I saw this new Director of Public Health speaking with authority on the question of MPOX. That is not a matter of the PS. That is not a matter of the minister. That is a matter of an official who is technical in the ministry to speak to us with authority so that we are not exposed to the knowledge, half knowledge and quarter knowledge of bloggers, Mr. Speaker, and then they circulate it as the truth. We want the new Inspector General of Police to be addressing that. Mr. Speaker, the minister has his place. The CS has his place. But, Mr. Speaker, we want, when it comes to security matters, the Inspector General of Police must be seen, must be heard, must be felt within the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, when we see the minister going to Baringo and what, he is a policy man. What we want is the person in charge. What is it that you have done? How many people have you deployed? How much money are you using for the operations? We want people who are holding public offices to speak with the authority of that office so that Kenyans can get the value for money. When there is a gap, Mr. Speaker, we have problems. We have rumors. We have false information. For example, Mr. Speaker, when we had the recent demonstrations that happened, it was the responsibility of the Inspector General of Police to come and say that this is what transpired. The estimated value of property lost is this. We lost some people as police officers, and this is the number that we lost. And the public also, condolences, we lost, and this is the number. You speak with authority and impartially. But, Mr. Speaker, we've even had arguments about the number of people that we lost, unfortunately, Mr. Speaker. And we have not been able to be told. When we say our people are involved, we want the police authorities, and we want Mr. Kanja to take this official position without fearing the political, because with us, we will never be satisfied with what we do. There'll be those who will be telling you what you're doing is rubbish, and there'll be those who will be telling you what you're doing is good. But what you need to come out to do is to tell us impartial position. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak about the question of his responsibilities. If you look at the Police Act, Mr. Speaker, Cap 84, one of the things he is supposed to do is to establish broader relationship with the society. Mr. Speaker, I was going to request Mr. Kanja, because we are approving him as the new Inspector General, that he must come out and set a certain legacy around him, that in his time, the Kenyan police service actually became the police service. It did not change to become a police force. We should be able to have that confidence as Kenyans, not to run away from police officers when we see them, but to be able to approach them and speak to them. Mr. Speaker, when I'm saying this because for us who come from the outer parts of this nation, the counties which are out there, you will find the relationship in some parts, and I'm not saying in all parts, in some parts, when children see the police, they run away because of the fear that police have installed and bestowed upon the people. May you come out as the Inspector General of Police who set up a new standard, that the police officers, we approach them with confidence like they do in other parts of the world, that we are able to talk to them and speak to them. I don't need to be a member of parliament, a member of county assembly, a member of the executive, or any person in government for you to listen to me. Any person, Mr. Speaker, should be able to be heard. We want to see the images of police officers helping the disabled people cross the roads. We want to see police officers being on the first line. When we call you, you don't tell us you don't have fuel. Mr. Speaker, one of the first things the president did when he got sworn into office, he said that he's going to give the Inspector General of Police full authority to spend the money. So now you have no reason for you to tell us you do not have fuel when emergencies occur. And in particular for counties which are outside towns, because this is where we need a lot of emergency response. Mr. Speaker, as I second this motion, I would like to request that he should not be an Inspector General who stays in Nairobi. We want him to come to these areas where there have been security issues. We want to see him there, and we want to see you talking when you are there, telling people what the government is doing. And because you are an AIE holder, you should tell us how much money you are allocating, say, to Tana River for operations. How many police stations are you opening in our counties, especially the ones that have, and I'm not speaking only about my county, Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking across the nation. Tell us how much money you are allocating. What is your strategic plan for operations in these counties? We should not be hearing only of the police when we have seen people die, or when there are accidents, when there are attacks. Come out and tell us this is the plan, this is how we are executing. You should be part and parcel of our lives, because security is our life also. Security is part and parcel of our life. You should be coming to the televisions, to the radios, to the whatever, speaking to us of your plans, so that we don't wait for things to happen. That's when we see you. We want you to tell us in advance that I will be coming to Tana River County, and this is the plan. We have this number of police stations. This is what we are doing, so that we walk with you. Mr. Speaker, I really want to commend to this Senate and even effectively the Republic of Kenya, this new officer who has served for so many years, 39 years, with distinction. So we ask that we support him, and I beg to second this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mundegi, have a seat. Honorable Senators will now proceed to propose the question. The Senate adopt the joint report of the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs of the National Assembly and the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations of the Senate on the approval hearing of the nominee to the position of Inspector General of the National Police Service laid on the table of the Senate on Monday the 19th of August 2024. And pursuant to Article 245, 2A of the Constitution, Section 12 of the National Police Service Act, Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, and Standing Order 77 of the Senate approved the nomination of Mr. Douglas Kanja Kirocho for appointment to the position of Inspector General of the National Police Service. Now the floor is open. Yes, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, in accordance to Standing Order number 111,